Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
I'm tired and forgot to make a song, and I'm sitting here in a Las Vegas hotel, and yay, the Cougs won. Woohoo! That's my song this week.
Very nice. Vegas!
Yeah.
Vegas!
Just wild time, let me tell you.
Every time I hear, Vegas, like I think back to the 86 times we watched Swingers when I was in college. And when you're in college, you're like, oh, Swingers is the best. What a great, and of course, that was when it came out. So it was like, it comes out and then, every group of friends is like, yeah, like you are so-and-so, and you're like every personality in their little group in the movie Swingers is like, everybody's got a friend like that. Right. So Sue in the movie, you've seen Swingers, right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That movie was probably, how much older are you than me? I was probably 7 years too old for me.
But you didn't see it when you grew up. That movie
did not resonate with my generation. The 7 years later, no one my age watched that movie.
Oh man, you missed out, man.
I know what the movie is.
You missed
out. No one was like, this guy's a swinger guy. Nope. Not even the once.
Well, yeah, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau.
I know who's
Jon
in the
Favreau
movie.
Before he got fat and was in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah, I know what the movie is.
Yeah.
I've probably seen it. I've definitely seen a million clips of it.
Anyway, one of the friends' name is Sue, like a boy named Sue, right? And he likes to fight everybody because he's named Sue. And it's like, my buddy Joe, like that, like Joe was Sue because Joe wants to fight everybody. So that's all I'm saying. Like when you got a group of guy friends, anyway. And Swingers takes place in Vegas, and
Well, there you go.
So
I'm in Vegas.
And you're in Vegas with your wife and your kid for a work conference. That's definitely not Swingers.
I'm wilding out. We took a 6 a.m. flight. But anyways, this is Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers, live from the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. With me is Jeff Nusser, who may be at a hotel. You never know.
I'm definitely not at a hotel. Nor am I in Vegas.
Well, I have you on the interesting location then. I wanted to record from the Chandelier Bar in the Cosmo because it's probably one of the most ridiculous things and the most Vegas things, because it's just like a 5-story bar that's in the shape of a chandelier. And it's one of the most absurd Vegas things, and I thought it would be very fitting, but it's very loud in there. Like, it's blaring music. And so I decided not to make our listeners listen to that. I'm on 90 minutes sleep. My daughter didn't want to let me sleep last night. We had a 6 a.m. flight. So, and then I've walked 10 miles today, 10.29 miles.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, it's been a day, but I'm ready to talk about some football and some beer and some whatever else. So, Jeff, what are you thinking?
I am having the Coffee Vanilla Deluxe from a Swedish brewery that I don't know how to pronounce, but it's Dugges. I don't know if it's Doug's or Dugas or Dugay or I'm honestly not sure.
Where'd you pick that one up?
So I got it at Rainier Growlers. So my local beer store.
A bottle or a growler? Or
a bottle. It says, we brewed a layered dream, a sweetly soft, robust, and elegant flavored beer with plush vanilla and Mateo roasted Colombian Tabi coffee. Then we let it mature in lovely whiskey barrels. Whiskey with a Y, not with an EY. Avec Deluxe. So there we go. Deluxe Brewery or Dugges Brewery in Landvetter, Sweden. It's a robust 15% alcohol by volume. I'm sort of, it's okay so far. I'm hoping some of it. I'm hoping I pick up on some of the. Yes, as it warms up a little bit. It's mostly, it smells like booze, and the coffee is pretty overpowering right now. So I'm kind of hoping that as it warms up maybe a little bit, some of that vanilla starts to come through. But yeah, it's okay. It's all right. I'll let you know if I change my opinion as we go.
Yeah, I can't remember, one of the beer places here in Vegas, I saw that beer and I was like, what the hell is that beer? And truthfully, I would never anymore at this point buy a stout that big that was not aged in a barrel.
Yeah.
Because a barrel will round off some of those harsh edges you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. It's aged somewhat, but yeah, I don't know if it was maybe, not aged that long or what, but it was, and I don't know, much more about that process.
It was in a bourbon barrel or something?
A whiskey with a Y, not with an EY.
Oh, so it was aged in barrels. So
it was aged in a barrel, yeah. But like I said, it's very boozy on the nose, and the coffee's a little harsh at the top, but yeah, like I said, I'm hoping some of that vanilla comes through a little bit more when as it warms up a little bit. So
nice.
Yeah, not bad.
So I am drinking a beer, throwing back to my Nashville days, because there is probably one of the most famous hot chicken restaurants in Nashville is Hattie B's, and they actually in the Cosmopolitan, they have a little area that has these kind of food trucky type restaurants, and they have a Hattie B. It's the only location that's outside of Nashville, I'm pretty sure. And they have a Hattie B's. They might have one in Austin or something, I don't know. But they have a Hattie B's there, and I remember when I went to Hattie B's in Nashville, they had Nashville beer and stuff. And sure enough, I come here. I actually went there for lunch today, and had some hot chicken. I can get they have let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. I got the hot, which is like the 4th level. But you can go 2 levels up higher than that. I think there's like the hottest level is like a ghost pepper sauce or something. So I hot, and man, like it's one of those burns where you're like the first few bites you're like, oh, this ain't that bad, and then like you're 5 minutes in, you're like, all right, this is kicking my butt now. And so, because I was already like, when I took a bite, I'm like, oh, I should have got the very hot. And then I was like, and then 5 minutes later, I was like, nope. No, because I've had Hattie B's before, and I know and I've had the very hot. And
it's like a smoldering fire, just sort of sitting on your tongue like hot coals for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not like, I don't shy away from heat, but I'm not like one of those extreme folks. But yeah, it's very tasty though. It's excellent. I was really excited.
Sounds good.
But also, I was excited to see, like, wonder if they'd, like, get some weird beers there, like, just, because it's Nashville. And sure enough, they do. And one of them was from Bearded Iris, which I was going to do that beer. But I've already done a Bearded Iris beer from when I went to Nashville in February and brought some back. So I don't like to repeat the breweries. But the other beer, so I actually have that as my sidecar beer, Bearded Iris Homestyle, which is only distributed like in Tennessee, and then also they have it on tap here in Las Vegas. And then the same goes for this beer from Jackalope Brewing Company in Nashville, and it's called, I looked it up, it's like a red ale, and it's called Rompo Red Rye. It is a twist on an Irish red using classic earthy UK hops and caramel malts with dark fruity notes. We gave it our own Tennessee take by adding flaked rye to the mash, which contributes to spicy and clean finish. And Rompo's some skeletal creature, whatever, of South African nature. But so yeah, this is definitely one of the, not my go-to style, but I was like, oh, so this Jackalope Brewing was interesting. They started right about when I was like a little bit, maybe like 6 months to a little bit of a year before I left Nashville, like about 6 months before I left Nashville. And they're started by two women, which is unique in itself. And I remember I volunteered at the East Nashville Beer Fest to like pour beer, and they had a bunch of breweries there from out of town and stuff. So people who got put with the breweries out of town, they would just pour the beer for that brewery. The brewery representatives were not there. You see this at beer festivals all the time. But I got paired with a brewery that was in Tennessee called Calf Killer, and so they had all their people there. I was just sitting there. They were making me like, so when they would pour the beer, they had like a spillover cup, like that would catch the beer, like, when you over poured the foam or whatever, and they would make me chug that every time it got full. And they would just hand me beers all day. Like I was not working. But next to me was Jackalope Brewing, so I chatted with them. One of the founders is actually from Vermont, and I was getting ready to move to Vermont for grad school. So it was really interesting. So I got to chat with her about Vermont and all that, and that was pretty interesting. So it's a pretty cool brewery. This beer is okay. Like I don't know. Like I don't know how good this type of beer is. Like I'm not like an Irish red connoisseur, um, but it's pretty tasty in that regard.
Good.
It's got a little bit of sweetness that you would expect from a red. It's got, I don't know. It's very balanced, uh, like very, ambery, reddy, whatever. That type of beer that hardly anyone makes anymore. So good on
Nice.
them for making one. Probably a beer you can make in a market like Nashville, where maybe the beer scene isn't quite as mature as, where like people will still drink a local beer, but they're not really wanting to drink some bigger beer, so they're fine with like a red ale, because you really don't see. I mean, Manny's is not a red ale, but it's kind of in the same, realm of what this beer is. So, or African Amber. So it's like the same sort of. It's like along lines of that. It's a local beer that people kind of grew up. Because now this beer's been around for 8 years or something. I still think of them as a new brewery because they were new when they left Nashville. But yeah, so yeah, cheers to Jackalope. Cheers to Bearded Irish. Cheers to Hattie B's in Las Vegas for some reason. But I wasn't complaining. I had a very tasty lunch. And now I'm ready to talk some Cougs.
Good. By the way, we should let the people know we are recording on Skype this week,
Yeah.
which will account for some of the audio weirdness and some of the
And
odd delays in responding and things like that. We have taken a step back in technology this week with Craig being in Vegas. So
yeah, I didn't. I was stupid and didn't bring my real mic. I have a little lav mic that I always travel with, and it didn't. It wasn't working the way that I wanted it to. So we're stuck back here with Skype instead of our usual tried and true TriCast. So we apologize, but our longtime listeners might feel a little nostalgia
yeah, this will be like
over
a
that.
throwback.
Yeah, exactly.
Us talking over each other and the tracks kind of garbling together. It's great.
Yeah, excellent.
All right. Well, hey, there was a football game on Friday.
There was a football game on Friday. It
Pretty good football game on Friday.
feels forever ago already.
It does, doesn't it? Like, okay, so it's
Yeah.
Sunday night, and it's
Well, there's
like,
been
oh
so
my
much
God, it
football
was
in
so long
between.
ago. Yeah, it was like so long ago. And sometimes I think like, the AP poll came out today, and I'm kind of looking, and sometimes I just kind of think like, I don't know, when you play on Friday night, I'm not sure if some of the newness of the wind the wind kind of fades away when the guys, and the ladies tend to, get ready to cast their votes. It's like, that
Well,
was so long ago that WSU beat Houston.
well, the funny thing on the topic of that, I feel like Cal actually got into the top 25 this week. Well, because there was some madness, craziness, like of teams losing, but also I think it helped them. I think maybe some people voted before they beat UW last week. and
Yeah.
they were like, oh shit, didn't vote for them, and so they got those votes back this week, and that got them up to 23. So there are
Yeah.
now six. I mean, we can talk about this, but we'll just briefly. There's now six ranked Pac-12 teams, but in true Pac-12 fashion, the top one is number 10. So
Right. Like our league is so deep, Craig, because that matters. Doesn't matter. Not in this era. Not in this only 4 teams go to the playoff era.
yeah, and you got like the ACC has Clemson and a giant pile of garbage. Just
Right. Like literally a giant, no, not literally, but it seems like literally a giant pile of garbage. The ACC is so terrible.
oh my
The
God.
SEC is not good either, except for Alabama and Georgia and LSU, and everybody else is trash. And it's like, whatever.
They got Alabama, Georgia, LSU. We don't have any. We don't.
It's
All
all
those
that
teams are ranked
matters.
ahead.
It's all that matters.
All those teams are ranked ahead of Utah. So,
College football
um,
playoff fetish, and that's it.
all right, but let's talk about them Cougs.
Yeah. The Cougs, not the Cougs.
Yeah, but man, that first half
Atrocious.
was a trying hour and a half.
Yeah, it was. It was it was kind of like it kind of went the way that we hoped it wouldn't when we talked on Friday, right? Or Thursday when we were like the one thing that scares us is if Houston can really control the game by running the ball, and that's exactly what happened in the first half. We got 4 possessions. They only had 3 possessions and
Three
scored
possessions.
yeah, and scored on 2 of the 3 and missed a field goal on the other one. So yeah, it was a pretty brutal half of football.
Yeah, and we only scored on 1 out of 4.
Yep.
So
And
after
almost scored on 2 out of 4, but then, bad Gordo. Bad
yeah,
Gordo.
he's not perfect apparently. Although in
God,
the second half he was pretty damn
he was
close.
pretty big in the second half. Yeah, it was funny,
Well, he
man.
did
Like,
okay. He did almost throw one pick and then almost had a tip to another pick, but
and
almost
he
doesn't count.
also tripped over the turf on
Yeah, he would have had him.
potential
He would have had himself a
game-winning
rushing
touchdown.
touchdown. He would have had himself a rushing touchdown if he didn't trip over the turf.
No, poor guy. He had
But
his
yeah,
had his shot at a rushing touchdown and he missed it.
yeah, but yeah. So the first half, they got that deep ball to Aesop, uh, torched the dude. Beautiful throw from Gordo. That was pretty much the big highlight in the first half. The, Otherwise, the first half, the defense just got mowed over. They were getting pushed off the line. They weren't getting much pressure on Derek King when he was throwing the ball. They weren't getting hits on him.
Yeah.
Uh, they weren't getting hits on anybody really. Like
No.
they were pretty much getting their butts kicked up and down the field. And it was tough to see, and it was kind of in the back of your mind, you were thinking this could happen, this is the way this could go. We just when it was coupled with the offense, not scoring on every possession, like it was a little harder to take and it was a little scary. But obviously, Jeff, I was frustrated at halftime. You and I were going back and forth at halftime about the offense, particularly.
Yeah.
Uh,
We were fighting, dude.
we
We
were
were arguing.
as close to we can. But
As close as you and I get.
yeah, yeah. So no, yeah, we were, and it was just it just looked bad. Like a couple of the possessions were just they had a touchdown in possession. They drove to the basically the red zone in another
Yeah.
possession. But the other two were just nasty looking, Like
Yeah.
Gordon took a very well. They ran the freaking big gulp, which I don't know why we're still
Yeah.
doing that.
I really wish we'd stop doing that.
Which that essentially killed a drive. And then and then the first drive of the game was a kind of very slow prod. Like it was a ton of plays and not very many yards.
Yeah.
And then they take a loss, and then suddenly they're punting. Like and it was just not. It wasn't the explosion that
Yeah.
we
Well, I
had
mean,
seen.
first two drives, it was 16 plays. 16 plays that covered, I'm doing the math here real quick, 44 yards.
Yeah.
and it was almost 10 minutes of possession. So 16 plays, 44 yards, 10 minutes of possession. Like that was
Yeah.
that was some Luke Falk shit right there. Like that
Yeah.
was painful to watch, and I think that was sort of the the thing I was, when we were talking before halftime. Like okay, so I'm watching it and I'm thinking, okay, so the first two, honestly, it just looked like he was processing very slowly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it just wasn't quite coming as fast and easy as it was the first couple games where, I'm sure he had his choice of very open receivers, right? And so, and not that Houston is any great defense. I mean, I think we sort of know at this point that they're not, but it's like, their athletes are certainly better than what he had seen in the first two games. They're well coached from, I presume that the defensive coordinator is competent and, put together a reasonably decent game plan over the after the first couple games. And, they, I think, tried to confuse some things, and he just looked like he was just not really seeing the field all that great. And then, of course, the third drive, 5 plays, 72 yards, and you're going, okay, 2 minutes, that's more like it. And then,
And then they came out on the next drive and
they covered 37 yards in
back.
6 plays. And it's like, okay, here we go. We're looking at 9-10 yards a pop over the last 2 drives. And then, of course, horrible decision to throw that fade from the 20, whatever, the 21.
Yeah, he got baited. Into
yeah. I mean, they were in cover 2 man, and they just, he, like, you should, like, that shouldn't even be a throw you think about throwing unless, like, somehow he gets in that little soft spot and you rope one in there. But it's not a here, let me float the ball to my guy kind of defense. And so, yeah, that ended about, I think I said on Slack that, like, the worst camera angle is the one where you can see the bad thing coming. And it's like, he let it go. And I was like, no, there's this safety. Here he comes. I mean, it feels like it's moving in slow motion, even though it's not. And, I was just really hoping that, Fisher might be able to sort of knock it away or something. And of course he didn't. So
Fisher is still, he hasn't built the muscle mass yet, and he got kind of pushed out of the way pretty easy. Not like, I know, there was some people I was watching that, there was a watch party in Tacoma, and like, that's pass interference. I'm like, no, he's just kind of weak. Like he's a freshman. It's just, that's what it is. He's just kind of a scrawny guy. Like that's what that is.
He's gonna get more beastly. I mean, he's reasonably physical, but he's not there yet where he's playing physical. He's not at that point yet. So he'll figure it out. But yeah, just a bad idea. And, whatever.
He torched the corner, but he and that's what got Gordon. So Gordon saw single coverage on the left with the
right. He saw him manned up.
I haven't seen all 11, but I'm sure the safety baited him by kind of shading over towards the right, and sure enough got him, because they were throwing that route. They were doing single coverage outside hot route quite a bit.
So at halftime, we were like sort of arguing, because I was like, those last 2 drives were really good. I don't know about the defense, but the offense is sort of starting to figure it out. And, it's not the worst thing in the world. We're only down by a touchdown, and you were having none of it. So explain sort of your thought process as they were heading to halftime.
Well, I was angry. Because as you know, I had said earlier in the weekend Slack, after previewing while I was previewing Houston, writing up preview, I'm like, these guys aren't that good. Like, I'm gonna be really mad if we lose to them.
Yeah.
And basically,
And we were losing.
and then we were losing, and it was everything that you were afraid of was happening. Like Derek King was using his legs to move the chains. He was breaking out of their first touchdown drive. They would have had a 3 and out, but they had two guys had him sacked, and Jahad Woods is one. We can talk about how Jahad Woods' first half versus his second half.
Yep.
A lot, which is pretty much exactly how the entire defense went. But Jahad Woods is one of them, and they had him sacked. It would have been a 3 and out, and he spun out of it, and he ran for a first down, and it was just like, oh my God, big bad wolf. Here's the running quarterback,
right,
screwing us over again,
right.
And so it was. So there was that, it was, but some of the frustration was. Last year we had a great offense, but it would just come out really shitty after halftime. And you and I have talked about, that third quarter a lot.
Yeah.
So I was angry, and I had anxiety, because I'm thinking, if we come out and play in the third quarter like we've been playing the last couple of years in the third quarter, we're gonna get our butts beat. Like, they're gonna score again. Like, now, I figured there would be an adjustment on the defense's part, and there wouldn't be score as many points, but I was worried. And there was this worry that there's this like insecurity that what Gordon did against New Mexico State and Northern Colorado was like what
like what Jeff Toole and Marshall Lowenthal did. Right.
What Marshall Lowenthal did to Idaho State and UNLV.
Right.
So you're like, shit, maybe it was that. Maybe that's what it was, Of course it wasn't, but there's this, in the back of your mind, you're like, maybe this offense isn't as big time as we thought it was. So yeah, I was nervous. I was mad. I just, all that, there's this thing that's kind of funny. When you start out a season and you haven't lost yet, it's like you just have this anxiety about getting that first loss.
Sure.
And the farther you get into the season,
yeah,
and it feels like, especially when the first three, it's like, oh, we should be getting these, and even the first four, but whatever. We can talk about that later in the week. But you see, and then you see like markers. So like in 2017, it was like, can we just please get to USC undefeated?
Right.
And this year it's, can we just please get to Utah undefeated?
Yeah.
Force that to be like the game of the week or whatever. And so there's that, that like I lost my mind over the Boise State game, and which is pretty comparable to this game. Boise State's better team was team, but pretty comparable to this in terms of, this is our one decent non-conference opponent, the one roadblock that we needed to get by to get to that big game that's down the road. And so that was, Boise State was that in 2017. We just need to get by them. The rest of the schedule was pretty soft. And then I think we played Oregon State before USC. But yeah, so we played. We just wanted to get to USC 5-0, and now to me, I just want to get to Utah undefeated. I want that to be a huge game nationally. I think that'd be super fun, game day, whatever. And it's a stupid reason, but I want the Cougs to get that attention. And that'll be the game that they would get that attention, because the first four weren't. Even though you have a Friday night game, you're the only game on. It still doesn't matter. They weren't really the only. I guess they were mostly the only game on, only nationally televised game on. But yeah. So yeah, it's you just get that anxiety. It's a lot of build. I got fucking ranting now. As an aside, like where I'm recording, there's this like really interesting photograph painting of like a showgirl, and like every person that's walking by stops by and looks at it. Like I chose the worst spot in this entirely empty room to record.
Everyone's gonna think that you sat there so you could stare at the picture of the showgirl.
She is not ugly, but I'm facing away from it. So
Oh, okay. All right.
like the picture I see is some robot, but
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, anyways, back to that. So yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety built in.
Yeah.
I had had a few beers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I threw out there, and I stand by it, by the way, because you were just sort of like, no, that's bullshit. It feels like you're making that up. That's bullshit. And I'm like, no, I stand by it. So it's not unusual for first quarters to not be great for our
Yeah.
quarterbacks. And
So
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 here's
okay, I'll
sort
let you
well,
say.
let
I'll let you.
me yeah,
Yeah.
let me
Okay.
sort of like explain, what I was talking about. So last year, if we look at it passing by quarter, first quarter touchdowns to interceptions, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, passer rating of 141. Okay. Second quarter, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, passer rating of 146. So 5 more touchdowns and 1 fewer interception. Third quarter, of course, being what it is. And then fourth quarter was the best quarter, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating of 173. Okay. Year before that. So this is, of course, Luke Falk territory. First quarter was by far the worst quarter for efficiency. Second quarter was the best. So first quarter, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, rating of 121. Second quarter, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, rating of 155. And then the year before that in 2016, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in the first quarter, which again was the quarter that had the fewest touchdowns and second most interceptions. So I just feel like there's this thing like where, I know Leach doesn't have a script per se, but like any offensive coordinator, he's got an idea of some things that might work. And, a lot of the, when NFL teams, have a script or whatever, it's not all just to, it's not all just to get off to a quick start or plays that they think are going to like really work. Sometimes it's just to kind of figure out what the other team's going to do. They're going to run this play, run these routes. How are they going to defend it? We're going to put out this formation with this personnel. How are they going to try and defend it? And then that informs what they can do later. And I think, I would assume Leach is the same, where he's got some ideas of some things that he thinks might work, got some ideas of some things that, he's going to test out and then file away for later. And then I feel like it's usually by that, third drive or so that they start sort of realizing, okay, here's the weak spot we can attack. And then sometimes they'll just find a spot and they'll just, go at it again and again and again and again. And,
Right.
I feel like you saw that where, the first 2 drives, as we already mentioned, were painful and slow and difficult. Third drive, 5 plays, 72 yards. Second drive, 6 play, 37 yards. And if he had not, made a totally boneheaded pass, I think we are probably in agreement that they figure out a way to cover those last 21 yards, right? And so if they do that, it's, somewhere, 48 yards in 7-8 plays, something like that. And then you come out in the third quarter, it's 6 plays, 44 yards, touchdowns. Next drive, 4 plays, 91 yards, touchdown, right? And so it's just, and then I think the next drive was the one that should have been 1 play, 75 yards, touchdown, but ended up being 5 plays, 32 yards and a punt. So at any rate, it's, they figured some things out, and I felt like, just kind of looking at the last 2 drives, it was a bit encouraging. Like I was thinking, okay, yeah, they've figured some things out here. They've, now they've realized, they could sort of pepper the middle with Arconato, and then maybe take a shot over the top when the opportunity presents itself. And then the defense, like I don't know, like it didn't feel dire. Like I don't know why, the fact that they really should have scored on all 3 drives. And in fact, the last drive was probably the worst one, right? They went 7 plays, 75 yards. I'm looking at all these drive charts. But the first 2 drives, it took them 26 plays to cover the ground that they covered. And, the first drive, obviously it was aided by some penalties against them, but it didn't feel like we were getting destroyed. It just felt like we were a little out of position again, missing tackles again because of that. And it just felt like, God, if we could just fix it up a little bit, we should be able to do some things. And, of course, lo and behold, in the second half, that took hold a little bit. So I don't know. I wasn't quite as discouraged. I mean, I was irritated for sure, but I was just sort of like, okay, so they're controlling the clock and that really sucks. But like you're only down by a touchdown, and are they going to be able to, maintain that kind of strategy the whole way? They weren't throwing the ball all that effectively. Felt like they were going to have to throw it at some point, and once again, we, came back and scored a couple touchdowns and took the lead. Felt like that really flipped things around a little bit. And all of a sudden Houston started feeling the pressure. So yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't have called myself optimistic, but I definitely was feeling like, okay, this is not a train wreck. This is not like, we're totally screwed. This is not, like, well, you referenced the Boise State game, right? I mean, that was a game where we were in a big hole and it had to, we needed a big effort to drag out of that hole. This one didn't feel like that to me. And I'm glad it turned out a little differently in the third quarter.
Well, yeah. Just to kind of wrap up a couple of your points. So, yeah, one of the things like when we were arguing or whatever, when you were talking about the third quarter, second quarter is best and fourth quarter is really good. Kind of my pain point, and I think we were talking about two different things. You were talking about how the first quarter is always bad. I was talking about how the third quarter is always bad. So my anxiety was like, no, we're going to come out and shit the bed in the third quarter too. And then where are we going to be in the fourth quarter when maybe they're going to click?
Sure.
But it, obviously we'll get into that in a sec. And then also on the defense, what's funny? Like I felt the best about the defense after the second drive when they scored the first touchdown because they had to work for it.
Yeah, 15 plays, 82 yards. You just kind of go,
it was. Kind of felt like and there was a couple like lucky plays that that's why I was talking about the missed sack, and there was a couple other things like that was like, oh, they just kind of like they barely got by to get that touchdown, and you kind of felt like the defense was turning a corner, but then of course the next drive was, and they're like, well, shit, maybe not, but yeah, so let's get in a little deeper in the second half. Before we do that, I think we got to take a break.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, man, I'm sorry if that was a really loud. Sorry, it was a really loud ad. We have nothing to do with that.
We're working on that. We're trying to figure that out.
We're working on getting that fixed. But yeah, so the second half, man.
Second half was good.
But the funny thing. So here's the thing. I was at the West End pub in Tacoma for the Pierce County watch party. The first half was I was in the family area with B and Amanda. B did not make it all the way to half. She was having none of any of it, and so Amanda took her home. So the second half, I went back to like where like the actual like the official part of the watch party, the room they like rent out. Like the Cougs fill up most of the bar, but there's the room in the back is the one they like rent out or whatever, and they decorate and all that. So I went back there, and I was like, by the time I went back, I was feeling like, yeah, like, I mean, it's one touchdown. Like I was thinking of Stanford the year before, or Stanford last year. A lot of games. And I had said, the funny thing is, before you and I got into it, and before I was starting to get super negative, I had said like, while Houston was driving for their second touchdown, I think I had said that like you can go back on Slack and check the receipts, but I think I said that I'll feel fine about this if we're within a touchdown or tied at halftime, and like I think I'll feel okay as long as it's nothing worse than that. And sure enough, like it was only 14-7 at halftime. As bad as everything felt, as much as I think it just felt like Houston was in control. But the truth is, total yardage wise, what it was like 50 yards, I think Houston more. Probably on a per play basis, they probably weren't beating us by all that much at that point.
Just in the first half, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the first half, it was 6.8 yards per play for Houston to 6.4 for us.
So it really wasn't. It wasn't the dominating performance that I think it kind of felt for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then the second half. So what that really showed in second half really only took minor course corrections to create a very dominant, probably 27 minutes outside of like a garbage touchdown at the end for Houston. Like it was WSU straight up dominated the game from the start of the second half to the end of the entire second half.
Yeah.
Aside from one drive from Houston, they started out. You just felt, man. I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it. And neither of us are momentum guys, but
No.
on that fourth down play when they
Yeah.
fumbled the snap, like you're like the game is different now.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
mean,
game is different now.
You give us a short field when our offense is starting to click, and that's, you're sort of asking for it at that point, for sure.
And it really was different, like because WSU scores, they come back and they score again.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's 20. What was that was so they got down to the one and Borgie punched it in, I think. So Tay Martin had a couple big plays on that. Was that the one where Renard Bell made
where he ran up
double
ahead and
blocks, on one play?
That was such a stud.
You describe it because you gave him a shout out on Twitter, so you describe it. That play is worth describing. That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean it was just a little inside screen and it was well blocked, and it started with Liam Ryan pancaking a dude.
Yep.
And then and then Tay is streaking up the sidelines, and there's a couple of guys chasing down, and Renard Bell, sprints, onto the screen from off the screen, right? And basically blocks two guys, gets in the way of one guy and then blocks another, and springs Tay for another 7 or 8 yards. So
that may have been in the fourth quarter, but I don't know. It was an incredible play.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out. Like Tay is fast, and Bell ran right by him. Like it was crazy to watch. I've watched it a couple times just watching Bell. It was the run he makes on that.
Yeah.
Like we talk in soccer about runs, like when guys make incredible runs. That was like an incredible soccer run.
Like a lung buster. We call those lung busters.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Bell came right out after that. But anyway, so they get a touchdown from Borgie. They get that fucking beautiful drop in the bucket. Patman burns the safety, burns the corner.
Yeah.
Gordon just flick of the wrist. Like that dude's release is so quick. Flick of the wrist, and it's 50 yards in the bucket, touchdown. That was a beautiful play.
Yeah.
The type of throw from that distance that we haven't had since Connor Holiday, honestly.
Yeah.
From just to be able to, with such ease, make that throw. He definitely has all the arm talent you want.
Yeah.
And he showed it off. Definitely showed it off. Then of course, kind of stall a little bit. But we got to talk about that. 21-14, very first play of the fourth quarter. They hit what WSU has, what looks like the death punch.
Yeah.
At that point, because Houston was just not doing anything on offense. WSU just looked like they were in control, and Borgie makes like the play of his career thus far. Like it would again, another dime from Gordon, like absolute flick of the wrist. Like I don't know if you've seen how Gordon throws that ball. Like he has it, like he's so good at just disguising that he's going to throw the ball, and then he just like flicks his wrist out, drops it right in Borgie in stride. Borgie shows off his speed.
How about that?
Holy crap!
Like that was the part I was like, no way is he going to outrun that. We've never seen.
We've talked about this a little bit before. WSU's running attack, because teams are playing back, playing for a pass, whatever. It's you rarely see our running backs getting like long distance run space where no one is impeding them.
Right.
But man, like Borgie's fast. I don't think I ever realized. I knew he was like quick. He was quick.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
He gets started quickly, but that was torture. But of course,
Yeah. Offensive pass interference where two guys run into each other totally away from the play and whatever, man.
a call that is never made.
That was such bullshit.
Well, you know how bad it is when our Jesse, who is our he can, like, Jesse on Kook Center, like, he'll give the refs the benefit of the doubt every single time. Like, he'll give them the most fair and fair approach. But even he was like, because basically the flag was thrown as Borghe's running into the end zone.
Right.
So the ref sees what was eventually called the offensive pass interference, turns and watches Borghi run down the field. You can see it in the replay. He turns and watches Borghi run down the field, and then turns back and decides, no, I can't let that happen. I got to throw a flag on.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really, it was a regular old mesh. And, he just happened to, run into a guy. And, I mean, I don't know, like I guess like he braced himself a little bit as he was running into I mean, I don't know what else you're supposed to do if somebody runs right into you, right? It's like, are you supposed to just...
He does a little kind of, when you're kind of walking one way and someone else is walking the other way, and you kind of almost run into each other. You do that kind of, you kind of juke back and forth. Both of you are juking back and forth. And Arcanauta kind of does that.
Yeah.
And so to me, it didn't look like he was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna lay this guy out. If Gordon would have thrown to Fisher, but the funny thing is Fisher was well clear of anyone. Like, Fisher was wide open on that play too. Yeah. He was well clear of anyone even before Gordon. The safety was right in, like, ran right directly in front of.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, if you want to call that pass interference by letter of the law, it probably is, but you can call that. How many teams run mesh now? How many or run plays similar to that where you have two receivers crossing? A pick play is what we call it now. It was ridiculous, and it makes me so mad because that play was so good. And
and then
stricken from the record,
and you take away. So, not that this kind of stuff really actually matters, but you take away a 76-yard pass on one pass attempt for the offense, replace it with 13-yard completion, an 8-yard completion, and then 2 incomplete passes and a punt, right? And so, the stats look worse. The depth, the score looks worse. I mean, at that point, they could have gone up, whatever it would have been.
28-14.
Yeah, 28-14. Been up by 2 full touchdowns at that point. Anyway, just frustrating, super frustrating, and whatever. And and Houston, of course, comes down the next drive and gets a field goal for it to be 21-17. And, we scored some more points after that. But, it sort of felt like at that point, another touchdown and Houston was really screwed is really what it felt like. And we kind of missed that shot at the, at the kill shot. But, we did go on to, obviously extend the lead out pretty good, couple touchdowns. I mean, at one point, on the TV broadcast, the announcer, Dave Fleming, no, not Dave Fleming. It's not Dave Fleming was a pitcher for the Mariners. Fleming, what's his name? No, is it Dave Fleming? His last name's Fleming. I don't know. Anyway, Stanford guy who's broadcasting the game. He goes, "Oh, Houston's really going to play the what if game," and I'm like, "Are you what?" Like, what do you mean? Because of that 4th down fumble. Okay, great. But really,
and because of the holding call on Derek King's long.
I mean, whatever. Like you want to be like, oh, what if?
And you had a Houston fan come out the podcast versus their Twitter account, assuming like, well, it was 1 for 1. The the waved off Borgie touchdown and the waved off. Like no, the hold
The
on
hold like
King's touchdown
sprung
was
the run.
that was exactly the like Marcus Strong like was right there to make the
Yeah,
tackle or
the
at least
hold
slow them
like
down.
sprung the run. Like
Yeah,
that is
like the
why
whole
he had a touchdown.
but like the Borgie it had nothing to do with it, and also it was a kind of a if he called it, it is never called to like hardly ever called. Like and
Yeah,
so it's like you were looking to call it or something, you know.
yeah.
Maybe he had seen Arcanado do the same play earlier
I
and
don't
wanted to
know,
whatever.
man.
We could beat that
But
to death and we have.
it,
But anyway, so yeah, there was the what if game
yeah.
and like WSU didn't have what
Well,
ifs
and
in
at
the
the
end
moment he
zone.
said that, the score was in the second half. Second half alone, the score was 24-3. We had outgained them 296 to 131. And on a per play average, it was 8.7 to 4.5. So our per play average had gone up 2+ yards. Theirs had gone down 2+ yards. And it was like, no, like we were just flat kicking their asses up and down the field in the second half. Like that was it. They passed for 23 yards in the entire second half, Craig. Houston passed for 23 damn yards. And I mean, it just, there was a point there where it was obvious that Houston realized, okay, we're only going to go as far as Derek King can take us and not just like throwing the ball, but running the ball. And it was just like, we're just going to like ride him until this game is over. Cause this is really the only real shot we have. And, and so it was really great to watch the defense, adjust and, I think the tackling was a thing like, again, I don't think it was all that different than the offense where the speed was different. The athletes were different, I mean, and I know they had their issues with tackling the first couple weeks, but, just kind of getting used to, King and the other guys and Marquez Stevenson, who we, said on the preview podcast was a good player and, would present problems. Yeah. If he got the ball in his hands. So, I mean, really no shock that they were able to do some of that in the first half. And, the second half, they were in a little better position. They had a little better idea of what Houston was trying to accomplish. And, it's amazing how when you get yourself in a little better position, then you're better at tackling. It's like, and that's kind of how it went. And so, just like the second half was so encouraging to me. Like it was interesting to me to see a lot of the comments on the website, just sort of talking about how, Gordo is, super erratic and we got to figure this out before the next game. And I'm like, what? I'm like,
So yeah, so let's just say
I'm like, wait a
Gordon
second.
was
Like he was
Gordon
like,
was
he had two bad
36
drives and he
yes,
shredded them the rest of the game.
he
Like, I don't know
was
what you want.
he was 36 of 48 for 440 yards and 3 touchdowns and a pick.
Minus a
People,
76-yard pass that he should have had.
yeah, so yeah, let's we talk about it.
Like he should have been over 500 yards.
People will and I people do this all the time. We all do it. It's just nature. So
Yeah, that's true.
you do, if you listener do it, it's fine. We get it. But like you build a narrative early, and it's really hard to come off of that. Even in evidence, against it. Like it's just like, no, this game was bad, and then like, but then you look at what Gordon ended up doing, and it's like he just like how spoiled are we at this point where we can look and see a guy's 36 of 48 for 440 and 3 touchdowns and go,
Oh, he's got work to do.
He missed 12 passes.
But that red zone interception was a real killer. It was like people were talking about like, oh, he was what was hero ball. Hero ball came up and I'm like, wait, what? Like I didn't see any hero ball. Like I was just like, what I think of hero ball, I think of a guy forcing it, like really legit, forcing it, trying to get back every point in one pass. Like
it was the opposite of that.
Yeah, it was the opposite of that.
He was being tentative in the first half.
Yeah, and I guess if you want to like think about the red zone interception, I mean, I guess it wasn't technically red zone, but you know what I mean. The interception at the end of half.
Fooled.
Yeah, and he's a young quarterback in terms of experience. Like I'm like, here's the thing, like this is something I haven't finished writing my my Monday column, but one of the things I'm going to talk about is how similar this game was to the Wyoming game last year. Just very similar, right? We trailed Wyoming at the half and then blew their doors off in the second half. And I mean, I don't know if people remember what Gardner Minshew looked like in the first half of that game, but it wasn't good. I mean, it was just like it was slow and it was kind of dink and dunk, and it was like, okay, it was all right, but it was, we were losing that game at halftime, and and they figured some things out
And
and
actually,
blew out the second half.
close. It was close, well into the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
It was.
yeah. I mean, the final margin was sort of like, I think we tacked on. I mean, I wouldn't call it garbage time, but we tacked on a touchdown at the end.
Yeah.
So it's, these games are, and I think the other thing is that, look, this schedule is great. Like I think WSU absolutely 100% schedules exactly as they should. And I know people will point to last year and be like, oh, if we'd only scheduled tougher, then maybe we would have been in the CFP. And we wouldn't have been. And I also don't think we should schedule as if we're going to be in that position. I really don't. And people may say that that's a defeatist attitude or whatever, but I look at this team this year and I go, yeah, I'm so glad they played two shitty teams, and then they played a team that was less shitty, and now they're about to play a team that might be as good as Houston, might not be, or might be a little better. I mean, I guess we don't really know, but it's like, I mean, listen, like playing those 4 games before you go to Utah, to me is like great. Like that's exactly what you should be doing as you're breaking in a team and you're trying to figure stuff out and you're trying to figure out who can do what. And your quarterback is brand new and hasn't ever seen, actual real deal live snaps. I mean, yeah, he goes and plays against Houston, and those are pretty good athletes, Texas athletes down there, and has a couple of like crappy drives as he's sort of figuring it out. And then he figures it out. I mean, I think it's exactly how we need to do it. I'm very thankful that they do it this way, and I think it's great. And they're going to should be 4-0 before they go to Utah, and maybe they won't beat Utah, but maybe they will, and maybe part of that will be because they played a schedule that got incrementally more difficult and really prepared them for the first truly difficult game.
Yeah, and just to kind of mild OCD, just to close some things I brought up earlier. Jahad Woods, first half, missing tackles, very frustrating to watch. Second half, he was back to his usual self, laying the wood.
Yeah, his second half was excellent. Defense
and
got to a point in the second half where they were playing very fast, and that was really nice to see.
Yeah, the defense, and obviously hats off again to Tracy Claeys. What a hire he has been.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week, and I know we talked about the WSU football blog guys talked about it as well in the Kook Talk podcast. He's just so good at the first half. They're just killing us. Second half, well, we made these adjustments or whatever, and I don't know if it's adjustments or sometimes it's just the players adjusting to each other as well. Sorry, that was
sure.
gross. But yeah, sometimes it's that too. So maybe not give Claeys all the credit, but still, we kind of we saw what Houston was trying to do, and we're like, sure, if that's what you want to do, try to do it. And honestly, they started hitting King in the second half a lot. I know you mentioned this. You mentioned in the first half that we weren't hitting King.
Weren't hitting him.
They weren't hitting King, and so. But they were hitting him a lot. Like I rewatched just the second half so far because I didn't have the Pac-12 and 60 yet. So I had the full one where you got to do the fast forwarding yourself.
Yeah.
But I just want to watch the second half. I want all the happy times. So I watched the second half, and yeah, they were hitting King a lot. Like there's only a couple sacks in there, but they were hitting him a lot. And he was taking hits on, obviously we had let's talk about that for a sec. How surprised were you? Was it Rogers? Was it Will Rogers that
I think so.
the targeting review?
Yeah. How about
How
that?
surprised were you that he did not get thrown out?
100% surprised. I was like, it would have been one thing if they had thrown the flag and then
Right.
they reviewed it and they went, not that bad, whatever. We'll let him stay.
Which, by the way, I'll say it wasn't that bad.
It
Like
wasn't that bad. Like it was
like
just
it
a
was
very
kind of just
glancing,
it was very much a glancing
yeah,
like
glancing
blow.
shot to
I mean, if
the
you
face mask.
which I think it's pretty impressive how he was full speed ahead and he very clearly made an effort not
Right.
to.
Right.
Which once again, as I said, just don't hit the quarterback ever.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was exactly what we talked about last week, where we were like, at what point do you sort of teach these guys to, maybe like sort of lasso them around the waist and kind of drag them down like a freestyle wrestling move, where it's like, you kind of, you do like kind of a sitting takedown or something. I mean, I don't know. There's just no safe place to hit them. I mean, as we saw with Stone, where it's like,
Right. He hit him.
I mean, he
in,
hit him in
in
the chest, but because he hit him with his helmet, it's like now it's targeting anyway. It's like it's just so bizarre, and you're just you can't. There's really
It goes
no.
against it goes against natural body movements.
Literally
like,
every time there's a hard hit on the quarterback, you sort of clench your butt and think,
yeah.
Where's the flag? Because it's probably coming. On this one, there was no flag, and so I thought, with a flag, maybe they kind of go, but without the flag,
You're like,
and
oh, they must
and they
be.
buzz
If the
it.
booth
I'm
wanted
going.
to
If the
review,
booth is buzzing it, I'm like, there's no way this doesn't end up in an ejection. There's no way, because if they thought they saw something and they want to take a closer look, they're gonna see what they thought they saw.
and this was a big play at this point. I think
Yeah.
it was 14.
No, it was a huge play. Yeah, it was a huge play.
Or maybe
Not
was
only you're
it
talking
Houston's
about
first drive of the second half. No. It was their second drive. I'm gonna say.
and I don't even think it would show up in the play-by-play, because it wasn't there was no call to show up in the play-by-play, so I'm not
It
even
would just
sure.
be, oh no. Also, a second part of this, if we're gonna let's just make fun of Pac-12 refs for a second.
Sure.
This exact same play was King threw it, and the receiver made a dive for it on the sideline. Never had control of it. Rolled over. The ball was laying on the ground.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
where the cheerleader got knocked over. This play had a lot going on.
Yeah.
The cheerleader got knocked over. Whatever.
And the ref is signaling.
The ref has just a hilarious visual. You can see the ball laying on the ground. The receiver is walking away dejected, knowing he did not catch the ball. And the ref is signaling catch.
Emphatically signaling catch.
Emphatically. And then you see his oh. But the funny thing is he never looks over at the ball laying on the ground.
Right. He never looks up to check and see if he
you
actually
really think
caught the ball.
A receiver who makes a catch like that on the sideline will be like, yeah, I'm just going to leave the ball sitting over here, not come up and be like, look, I have it, So it's just a hilarious, and the other refs coming in, the back judge coming in and be like, no, and then
He's
you
like,
see
the ball is on the
ref
ground.
is like, you see him make the juggle, like, oh, he juggled it, and it's like, well, not even really that, he just didn't even come down with the ball at all. So that was pretty funny.
Well, I'm glad they got it right. I mean, I'm glad they got it right.
Yeah.
I've said before that my biggest complaint with refs is that they look for reasons to make calls instead of reasons not to make calls. They look for reasons to get involved with the game instead of reasons to just let the players play. And this was one of those where I was sure, when they buzzed down, I thought, oh, well, that's it. They're going to see what they thought they saw, and he's done. And so that's that. The fact they didn't is a credit to them, I guess. I'm glad. I'm glad that they didn't, and whatever. But it's, I'm tired of referees inserting themselves into games where they don't need to be, and you just instead of letting players play. And look, I mean, I'm not about like let the players play. In other words, let everything go. But I'm also like, let the players play a bit. Let them, I mean, that offensive PI, that's not offensive PI. Like I just, just let it go. Sometimes guys just run into each other. Sometimes there's incidental contact helmet to helmet. I mean, sometimes this stuff happens and just let it happen. So, but second half, look, my big takeaway from this game is going to be that, Gordo led them back from a halftime deficit. They figured some things out in the second half. They stood up tall. They showed the fortitude that we got so used to seeing last year. And I mean, it wasn't a dramatic fourth quarter comeback, but they were losing and they certainly could have pooped their pants and they didn't. And so I think that's all really, really, really good signs going forward.
Yeah. I'm encouraged as well. I really wanted that. I didn't want Gordon to get bit by that turf monster because it would have just made the
I
score a
know.
little bit better.
Uh,
I just getting that double-digit win would have been nice because I think that was more reflective of how much we
and
ultimately
that score
dominated
that score would have been significant to some people.
some people.
Some people. Instead of
Some
7
people,
points. That probably was a
10
push in
points,
some places, but
10 points and
10
7
points
points.
would have covered. 10 points would have covered.
So yeah, I mentioned this in Slack earlier as well as like I think we're gonna lose our status as these like cover kings
Yeah, I
because
think so.
Vegas
They
is on
finally
to
caught
us.
on.
They know we're good. So
Well, for
like
listen, for people who don't
took
gamble or
it
pay
took
attention
it
to
took
that at all,
30 it took
yeah,
37 wins in 4 years for them to
yeah,
finally catch on.
like
So
for the last like 3 or 4 years, if you don't follow gambling at all, for the last like 3 or 4 years, like
well,
the
they were
Cougars
10 and
have,
WSU was 10-3 in their last 13 against
yeah,
the spread.
against the
Right.
spread. Like
I
it's
mean, in second.
just like criminally underrated versus, via the spread for the last, however many years. And it seems like people have finally caught on. I mean, I think UCLA opened at 19 or something like
Yeah,
that,
that's a
which
big
is a
number.
big number for a conference game. Like I don't know when the last time
I
WSU
think
was
it
a
was
19.
19. It was 19-ish at Oregon State last year.
But yeah, okay. Yeah,
I
I'd
want to
I'd
say
be
it.
interested to go back and look because I'm like, that's a big number
But
for a conference.
UCLA against
So, but
UCLA.
yeah, we'll talk about this later. But it's
Yeah.
like yeah, I think it's a sign of where we're at and the respect that we're getting. I mean, we talked about at the beginning of the year, the fact that we were ranked at the beginning of the year despite, replacing the quarterback. And not only just despite replacing the quarterback, but not knowing who the quarterback was actually going to be. I mean, I think most people were assuming it was going to be Gabrud and they were going to be fine, but it wasn't for sure. And people were like, yeah, we'll just, we'll put him in the top 25 anyway. You know, let him, put him in the top 25 because Leach, this is what he does, and you just saw those same qualities in the team again on Friday. This mental fortitude, the ability to not panic. Obviously a lot of that is Gordon and that's great, but a lot of that is, the rest of the roster. I mean, the defense never panicked. They figured their stuff out and got to a point where they were in better position and playing fast. They were flying around and hitting dudes in the second half. And then, again, the offense just sort of like, figured out where the soft spots were. And, Brandon Arcanato, who's a guy we haven't talked a ton about, but just, he's leading the team in catches and yards after 3 games, which is like
Yeah.
not what I would have expected. And then beyond that, he's not coming off the field like at all. Cassidy Woods, who was a guy we were sort of drooling over, he's barely playing. I don't know if he played at all on Friday. If he did, it was really for a very brief time. In fact, about the only time Arcanato comes off the field to get a break is when I don't know what the name of the formation is, but they're 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. That's when he comes off the field. That's when they get their inside receivers a break, is when they run their 2 running back sets. And so, awesome for him to do what he's doing. Again, I said,
He did not run many 2 running back sets.
no, not that many. Yeah. So he he was on the field a lot. And to be on the field that much, running as many routes as he's running, and at the speed that is required of him at all times, super impressive, really great for him. And, just kind of cool that they have a guy in there who's, frankly, really the most like River Craycraft since Craycraft. Jameer Calvin's great, but different kind of receiver. Kyle Sweet was not River Craycraft. Like, despite the obvious comparisons that people loved to make about him, he was slower and not quite as physical, and just not as good of a receiver. I'd say right now Arcanado is about as close as he's a little smaller, I think, than Craycraft is,
not
but
quite as athletic.
Obviously not quite as athletic, but just, brings that similar kind of presence to the inside. He's physical. He just has a feel for the soft spots.
But
and it's tough. He hangs onto the ball when he gets popped. He's gotten popped a few times this year and hung onto the ball. So
the big difference, I think, is that, Craycraft scored a lot of touchdowns because
yes,
Craycraft's athleticism made him a better red zone, close to the end zone target.
And he was more of a threat to take, a 15-yard catch 30 yards for a touchdown,
Yeah, and more of a threat to jump over, to catch. But Arcanado,
but similar style. Arcanado's got a similar style.
Absolutely, man. And he had some nice catch and runs. That one when he jumped up with the two knees, tried his hat at a hurdling. Didn't quite work out.
He saw Max do it and was like, "Let me try that." And he looked like he was doing a flying, kung fu kick or something.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Right. Man, all right, so man, I think that I'm just so glad they went down and got that win.
A win's a win is a win, man. It's not like it was super ugly. Like, you could look and go, there was progress. And at this point in the season, to get a win and progress, like, that's what you want. I mean, they're going to get tough soon enough. I mean, once we get past UCLA, it's like a death march. I mean, it's just like, it's one right after the other. We sort of, I think it was Scott Cresswell on Slack today, one of our other writers, like the AP poll comes out and he's like, look at all these Pac-12 teams that are ranked. That's our road schedule the rest of the year.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Every single, yep.
They're all ranked right now. So it's going to get tough. Enjoy the wins right now before it gets tougher. And, hopefully these, like I said, the way we've scheduled has, set some building blocks for, getting there. And it's like, look, I mean, I don't know. Has any Pac-12 team looked like world beaters yet? I don't think so. Maybe Oregon, I mean, obviously they kind of collapsed there in the fourth quarter against Auburn, but if you look at their other, 11 quarters, they have been pretty spectacular. So maybe Oregon, but Utah is the highest ranked team and they've looked okay. I mean, they haven't looked great. I mean, they played, didn't they play an FCS team this weekend and won like 31-0? Like, it wasn't like, they blew anybody's doors off. So yeah, I mean, it's, I think we're getting there. We're doing the right thing and heading on a crash course there with the Utes in Utah and Salt Lake City. And I love that matchup because we've sort of owned them recently and I'm all about it. If we can just get past UCLA.
Yeah. This is another one. It's one of those seasons that could turn out to be real fun. Because, we've kind of adjusted our expectations to the point where, what we've, 3-0 is like, yep, yeah, 3-0. That's what we get. And then we're expecting 4-0, obviously. And we're looking at that Oregon State 5 and Colorado 6 or whatever. So your expectations are like, yeah, the rest, we should get, 8 wins is like the expectation. And so now it's fun is like, maybe we could do better, when 8 is where you're starting, and like suddenly it becomes really fun thinking about, like, there's one game on the schedule where I'm like, nah, I'm not even gonna.
Right.
Which obviously.
Yeah.
But
we don't need to talk about
but
that.
like
game.
literally, we can look ahead at the schedule and we're like, we have the current number 10 team in the country on the road in 2 weeks, and like that, it's not only do we not write that off, we're like, oh, we can beat them.
Yeah, we can. Hell
That's
yeah, we
where we're
can
at
beat
as a
them.
program. Like this is where we're at as a program and fucking rules. And we can go
It's
down to
fun.
Houston. We can go down to Houston, like just play like idiots for a half, and then just beat the shit out of them in the second half, and it's fine.
And
So
we've all been around long enough to know that it's not always going to be this way. Like, not to be
yeah,
negative, but it's not always going to be this way. And this is pretty damn great.
I celebrated it hard on Friday night. Let me tell you.
You know how I celebrated? I went to bed.
Yeah, I didn't.
We were packing up, getting ready to go hiking yesterday, and I was like, "Yep, game over." Finished my recap, and went to bed. So there we go.
I was like, so friend that was at the watch party, we were like, she and I were like, okay, let's get fireball shots. And it was like we both have to close our tabs. Let's each buy 2 fireball shots, one for each other. So
One for
just
me, one for you.
two back to back, and
Yeah,
then we had some more fun after that, and
yeah, I'm sure you did.
that started my weekend of little sleep. And because of the thing about when you have a kid is when you decide to stay up late, you no longer have this guarantee of like, well, I can still get, if I go to bed at 2, I get up at 8, I get 6 hours sleep. It
Right.
doesn't work like that anymore.
Because
you
if the
know
kid wakes up, you're up.
Yeah, the kid wakes up. Yeah, so B, of course, I went to bed at like 2 or 2:30 or whatever. It was late. Um, but oh no, one more time. I have to tell the story of Vegas, and then we can let these people off the hook. But so my girlfriend was getting a little rowdy. Amanda, she was getting a little rowdy tonight in the suite. She knocked over a bottle of vodka,
Uh-oh.
spilled all over the floor. Not
Uh-oh.
vodka, tequila, which she bought for some. I'm like, that's the one mixer you wanted to have in the room is tequila? The one that everyone does, universally known as such a great mixer that you just mix with so many things. No,
Right.
but anyway, she said it was the cheapest, so I give her that one. So she knocks it over, it cracks, just leaks over. So our hotel room now smells like tequila. So now it's like proper Vegas because but
Nice.
she wasn't drunk at all. She's just kind of clumsy and knocked it over. But anyway, so now we got a party room. It smells like booze. With the pack and play right in front, right when you come in. That's when
But
it's
not
time
just
to
any booze. Like tequila is like its own
tequila.
it's like its own special
Like
smelling booze.
there's certain people that just can't stand the smell because they had one bad experience with
I'm
tequila,
one of
and
those guys. I'm one of
yeah,
those guys.
yeah. I wonder what I always think of the different hard alcohols. Like tequila has more of those kind of stories
Oh,
than
for sure.
anything else.
My fraternity had an affinity for prairie fires as a
Oh
as
my!
a punishment drink on 21 runs and pub
Which
crawls,
please,
whatever. So
people who don't know, explain what a
it's a
prairie
shot
fire
of
is.
tequila with Tabasco sauce in the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And I think it wouldn't be quite so bad actually now that I kind of like Tabasco sauce, but
Yeah.
it's like,
But when you're shooting it,
tequila's already gross on its own. That's why it's mixed with everything.
because you've
That's why
only
it's,
had shitty tequila, but
oh,
what?
please. I refuse to believe, okay. I refuse to believe there's good tasting tequila, but I'll trust you on that one. Anyway. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
distinct. It's a distinct smell
you
and
brought up
flavor.
prairie fryers, so I have to share my prairie fryer story. Is any of our listeners? I'm sure there's some listeners that know who the Pullman bartender Alfredo is. He's fairly famous for working at various bars and over serving people quite a bit. Um, but when I was the summer after my senior year, I stayed and worked and just partied pretty freaking hard with all the people I worked with at the call center, the research call center. One of my good friend's roommates, we were at the zoo, which you've been to, Jeff.
Yep.
Which is not existing currently, right? I think. Up for sale. But so I was big into prairie fire shots that summer, as one does. And so I got prairie fire shots with my friend's roommate. So we take the shots. He immediately yaks all over the bar. Just vomit everywhere. Completely disgusting.
That's a bad idea.
Alfredo starts cleaning it up, doesn't kick him out, and just like gives him a glass of water. I'm like, he puked on the bar. That should be automatic. Sometimes they kick people out when their eyelids are like kind of
right. They're like, you look a little sleepy.
Yeah,
time for you to go home.
But no, like straight up, like, and then he's like trying to serve him later. I'm like, come on, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what's going on right now? Like you watched him vomit on the bar. You cleaned it up. You didn't even care. You just kept on going with your day. I'm like, wow. So yeah, that was always, you followed him around for the strongest drinks. Last I knew, he was at Rancho Viejo, which already has its most famous strong drink, the Mexican flag, which with Bacardi.
Also a disgusting drink.
Oh, I mean, nothing with 151 is good.
No. But the 151 is on fire, right? But it's on fire.
Nothing you can light on fire tastes good. Like,
that's right there with the like I said, that was, one of the drinks that you do when you're on your 21 run or your pub crawl or whatever. You go there, and we used to go get the Shermarita too, but rest in peace there, Shermers.
Rest in peace, Shermer. Rest in peace. A lot of the binging. What was the bar in Moscow? No longer open. That did the ladder. Someone's screaming at the
I know somebody
podcast right now.
Yeah, somebody listening is like, I know that one, and I'm like, I don't remember because I never went there. But whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, they've eliminated the ladder. You can't do the ladder. Wiley's no more Pete's and Wiley's, where you could get a drink with 8 shots in it. That's
pretty much what the Shermarita was.
You could only have 2. You were only allowed to get 2.
Only 2. Only 16 shots for you, big boy.
16 shots. I can't remember what it was, but there was one that had 8 shots. Most of them had like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
There was one that had 8 shots. So, of course, a lot of college kids be like, that's the one I want.
That's the one I want. More bang for your buck. Anyway, hey, any Pac-12 games catch your eye? It was kind of an eventful weekend.
I got to sit on my ass and sit on my ass and hungoverly watched a shit ton of football on Saturday. So I should have opinions on this.
Did it surprise you that Stanford went and just got walloped by UCF? Let's start there.
No, actually.
Really? It surprised me that they got walloped.
Stanford looked like shit against USC, I think, and then in the fashion that they got walloped, yeah. I thought they would.
Stanford,
I thought it would be more of a. I thought it'd be more of a 45-31.
Yeah, I was thinking more something like 31-27, like that kind of deal.
Yeah.
That they might. Yeah,
they got run over.
I mean, they gave up 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. Yeah. They were down 38-7 at half.
It sucks for UCF that Stanford is probably not good.
Right.
And win is not going to look good for them.
They just got to be like banging their head against the wall going, man, we were 1 week away from getting a win over ranked Stanford. Like if Stanford had just figured out how to beat USC, which of course goes on to lose to freaking BYU.
So yeah, we can talk. Okay, so let's throw this here. So USC, the new anointed USC. Oh, they're back.
Oh, they're back.
They're in the college football playoff race again. They're back,
carrying the torch for the Pac-12.
They go and lose in Provo.
In overtime.
Run the ball 47 times. Probably a
So,
little less. There's
hold on,
probably
I
some
can look
sacks in
into it.
there. There's probably some sacks in there. I don't. But air raid? What? And not even like. And they're not running like.
Yeah.
They're not
They
running
ran the
like.
ball 45 times. Slovis had 4 carries. So if we assume those are all sacks, then or scrambles, then it's
Or
40
scrambles.
41. It's 41 runs, 38 passes.
Yeah. Air raid.
171 yards on 41 carries. That's not
And that's I don't think Graham Harrell is making this like changing up the air raid that much, but
No, I mean it's kind of what I can't remember if I said this on the podcast or not, but when we talked about Harrell, when Harrell got hired, and I know we talked about it on Slack, I was just like, I'm really curious to see like if he's gonna really be allowed to cut it loose. If USC coaches, fans, whatever, are really gonna abide throwing the ball 50 times a game. Like if that's something that is that's just not something that's in USC's DNA. And I'm actually I'm a firm believer in sort of program identity and like your program sort of is what it is. And so, for example, for Wazoo to be a full air raid team with Mike Leach, I'm like, that's perfectly Wazoo, right? Like this is like, we have a history going back like 40 years of longer than 40 years, 45 years ish of just these wide open offenses throwing the ball, just like, we're going to try and score and we're doing whatever. Well, like USC's got a 50-year history of just mauling people. Right. So now you bring in, Graham Harrell, who is this air raid disciple and put together this, really nice air raid ish offense, down in North Texas. And that's great. And it's like, well, are they really going to let him do what he does? And, when I see something like 41 rushes, I think no, they're not actually they're not actually going to let him do what he does, because Slovis was pretty good. Like he wasn't. I mean, he threw some interceptions and that was bad, but overall the rest of the numbers, I mean,
I mean, the last interception was pretty crazy. But
yeah, but 8.3 yards per attempt. I mean, you go.
right.
I mean, you're doing some things through the air, and when you're running the ball at 4 yards a pop, which is what they were doing, it's like, I don't know, man. Anyway,
Stop running the ball.
yeah,
Yeah.
stop running the ball and throw the damn thing. But
Yeah.
whatever.
So USC knocked off their perch. Stanford. Ugh.
Yeah.
Arizona. What the fuck? Arizona.
How about that?
Not shitty. Not
Yeah.
shitty. Defense. They have one. I feel like
Eh,
they always do.
I don't know if
feel
I'd
like
go
they
that
always
far
do.
yet.
But I do feel like
They had one in that game.
I feel like Arizona does this a lot, and WSU itself has done this before too. Arizona starts the season just looking awful, and then kind of like figures it out. Like Khalil Tate looked most like Khalil Tate in the second half of that game,
Yeah.
or even the first half. I'm sorry. When he had that 89-yard touch, you're like, oh shit, he's back. And now you're suddenly like, am I so sad they're not on the schedule now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we'll talk about the reason they're not on the schedule. We have Arizona State on the schedule. That was the ugliest piece of crap I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Game.
Welcome to Herm Edwards ball.
Yeah.
NFL ball.
That is some ugly football.
The NFL is so great.
But they did it again.
Yay.
To Michigan State, just uglied them out, which Michigan State uglies the hell out of games all the time.
Like if you're an ASU fan and you're like, are you just happy that you won, or are you? I mean, I imagine you're mostly happy that you won.
Winning is the
but
best.
Winning
always,
is the best.
No matter
and
how
I mean,
you get
well,
there.
like, and this is coming from.
I was at the 10-7 win over USC. It was amazing. It was the greatest thing.
This is coming from two guys who also were like, Dick Bennett and Tony Bennett are the best thing on earth. So I mean, whatever, I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so painful to watch. And I'm a Seahawks. I mean, you and I are Seahawks fans too, so we see this from the Seahawks as well. It's just like, but man, like I would so much rather win the way we win than win like that. Like it just,
Well, the funny thing is, like,
But
that
whatever, good
style.
for the Pac-12, right?
Well, that style that he's running is meant to be like to establish toughness as a program and all this stuff. But the thing is, WSU has toughness for days, and
Right.
they run like they
And we
pass,
and we throw the ball 60 times a game.
and we have little dudes on defense, and we just
Yep.
and whatever. Like toughness isn't about like
No, it's
running
not.
the ball straight into the middle of the. It's
No.
like whatever. So we've proven that.
Yep.
Over and over again in
Yep.
Leach's time here.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a great win for the Pac-12. Great
Yeah.
time. Pac-12 had to come out and say that their refs fucked something up again because
They blew it.
there was a
They blew it bad.
pretty obvious leaping penalty.
Really obvious.
You know, obviously that entire game, that the end of that game was the longest. It was so long there because both the teams had all their timeouts. They were taking all of them. There was penalties. There was reviews. It was crazy. And then they kick. Michigan State ties the game. Okay. Nope. 12 men on the field. Use the review. That review took, like, it wasn't the review itself, but to get to the point of the review,
Yeah.
like they were talking forever.
Yeah.
But I feel like that should be a booth review immediately. No, we saw it. There's 12 guys. But it was
like
really
that
fast.
should be easy. Can you count to 12? Yes. Penalty.
Once they acknowledged the review, it was pretty quick. But it took them a really long time to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But then after that, it had honestly had nothing to do with the guy's kick. But still, it's a rule. And the Pac-12 came out and they've apologized about it. And they said, yeah, it should have been a leaping penalty. But I'm sure the Pac-12 is still like.
I'm sure that's a lot of
desperately
consolation to Michigan
we desperately
State.
need them. Oh yeah, Michigan State. Yeah, so what it would have been like a 30-yard field goal to tie the game.
Would have been a chip shot.
Yeah, and he probably would have made it, and they would have went to overtime, and it would have been.
Who knows what happens from there? They probably would have scored.
Where no one has scored.
Yeah, or they would have kicked like 13 field goals or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would end up being like just increments of 3 all the way down the road. But yeah, so whatever. Good win for the Pac-12.
Yeah. You know, Washington beat Hawaii as you would expect.
As you would expect.
If that game was in Hawaii, maybe some weirdness would happen, but you know, whatever.
Cal
hangs on against North Texas.
Cal's just going to do that against any team they play, I guess.
They're going to get exposed. They're going to get exposed at some point. It just depends on when it happens. Colorado loses to Air Force, which is kind of a bummer. Unless you're an Air Force fan, but it's like obviously it's not a great thing for the conference.
Yeah. Congrats,
especially
TJ.
after they just beat Nebraska, which I think everybody knows Nebraska is not that good, but it's like, you know, losing at home to Air Force is kind of.
I do have to to a point on that. I saw like Yogi Roth said on Pac-12 Network before the game, like earlier in the week, he was like, Colorado's the biggest surprise of the year, and I'm like, they've beaten 2 teams.
Yeah.
That they beat last year by roughly the same margin.
Yeah.
Why is that a surprise? Like what is your definition of surprise here?
Yeah.
Like, and they return their starting quarterback and return their best player. Like, what is the definition of your surprise here? That Colorado, like, did you think Colorado was going to be an absolute pile of garbage? Like, got worse?
I think so.
Like,
I think that's actually it. I think everybody just sort of assumed Colorado was going to be bad.
Changing coaches. And
I mean, I know they had the same quarterback coming back and they still had Chenault. So it's like, okay, but I think,
Chenault, man.
Anytime there's a coaching change, you know, you figure there's going to be some adjustment, and you know, you don't expect. Football is one of those sports, man, where it's not very often you see a coaching change and the team immediately gets better. That just does not seem to happen very much. Happens a lot in basketball, but it doesn't seem to happen a whole lot in football.
But
so
I think that you and I can probably agree that Colorado did not get better. Nebraska was overestimated, and Colorado State is still just bad. Yeah. So
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, but yeah, still, you know, they're coming to Pullman October 19th, but for homecoming. Yeah. Who else? Yeah, did we leave anyone out? Did we get everyone?
Yeah, I think that's most of it.
UCLA. UCLA got one.
Yeah, UCLA gets spanked by Oklahoma, which everybody expected. We'll talk more about that on Friday.
Let's go. Okay, so we only got a couple minutes. Like this story really.
Should we spend 5
But
minutes talking about Gardner?
yeah, Gardner. Well, first let's give Hercules Matafa a tackle for loss today and all that goodness. He's solidifying himself as an NFL player, and that will get significant time. But Gardner Minshew, man, like
I watched almost all that game.
Good, man. I didn't watch any of it. We were walking around Vegas, of course, of all places, like just walking around the place where there's a million TVs with football on, and barely see anything.
In Vegas? What?
Yeah.
There's TVs with sports on?
Yeah, but I did. We were walking by a bar. I saw the late touchdown that Gardner threw, and then we just kept. B had shot herself. We had to go find a bathroom with a changing table, which isn't always the easiest thing in Vegas. No. And so we just kept. I assumed that was 13-13 going in overtime.
Yeah.
But no, it ended up 13-12 after a run. After Gardner was pretty much dealing late in the game.
Super dealing.
Yeah. Just another very solid game from him. And against probably a better defense than he saw the week before. But of course they go to the run to try to get a 2-point conversion and fail. But yeah, I know what you were talking about. So what's Gardner facing now? He's clearly got the ability to compete at the NFL level.
No, he looked like an NFL quarterback.
Maybe the coach isn't ready to let him loose yet.
They are just, Jacksonville's another team that's like obsessed with establishing the run. Oh, we got to establish the run. We got to run like the freaking Seahawks. It's just like, by the way, with the caveat that the Seahawks actually didn't do that today, but they did it last week, and they've done it pretty much every other week for the last year. So whatever. But yeah, like the Jaguars have Leonard Fournette, and they're bound and determined to use him apparently. And so, they just kept force feeding him the ball repeatedly until they needed a touchdown at the end. And Gardner leads them down the field, made some nice throws, had some nice scrambles that we all would expect, including like a 4th and 10 scramble. Where Houston went into a man-to-man and sort of vacated the area, and he stepped up and scrambled for 10 plus yards. Leads him into the end zone with a typical Gardner play, like steps up in the pocket and kind of ends up scrambling just a little bit and finds a guy in the back of the end zone with a little flick of the wrist and leads him to that touchdown that would have tied the game with an extra point. They decided to go for 2, which was on the road, Gardner at quarterback, absolutely the right decision, until they decided to just do like a little inside zone handoff to Fournette. And he came up an inch short. And I know that like everything's different. Obviously this is like some results based analysis, right? Where everything's different if he gets in, but and he didn't, he didn't even try to reach the ball out. Like it was like, I don't know, man. It was very strange. It was very strange.
He's not the Fournette that we saw at LSU.
No, he doesn't, he's like a lot of those guys that, run at Alabama. Like they're big and they're physical and they're fast, but it's like,
and they have holes for.
Yeah, when all of a sudden they don't have, 3-yard wide holes to run through, it's like all of a sudden life gets a little more difficult. I mean, Fournette had a couple of nice, he had a nice catch earlier in the game where he, made a move in the open field and dusted a guy. And, that stuff's all great, but, you give him the ball on the inside and, for such a big, supposedly physical dude, he's not knocking people over. He's not, giving them the Marshawn Lynch treatment. He's just sort of like, kind of tiptoes into the line and, leans into somebody and, he got literally to the 1-inch line. Like he was that close and he didn't even really bother to try and reach the ball out which normally you don't want to do around the goal line because you don't want to fumble. Well, it's a 2-point try. It's a 2-point try. Like all you want to do is try and get it over for even 1/10 of a second and you've got it. Right. So anyway, totally ridiculous. Gardner. he was
23,
dealing.
23 of 33, 213 and a touch.
Yeah,
Also led the team in rushing,
yeah.
656.
And he
You know,
was good when he wasn't, under tremendous amounts of pressure. Their left tackle, boy, I have not seen a left tackle that bad since, like, I don't know, the Seahawks 2 years ago, like before they got Dwayne Brown, when that thing was a total disaster. So he was very, very bad. Gardner was under pressure the entire game, and it's just super cool to see him lead that drive for a touchdown, and then super disappointing to watch his coach completely undercut him with a ridiculously conservative play call. I mean, I always say that nobody outthinks themselves like the NFL. It's just like they're like they twist themselves up into a pretzel trying to figure out the clever thing. And it's like, just like do what you do, I mean, Minshew just led you all the way down the field. Like, why would you take the ball out of his hands? Like, why wouldn't you run one more play? Why wouldn't you run, just something where, he's got a chance. I mean, you want to move him, you want to give him a run pass option, you want to, I mean, just something. But anyway, it was terrible. He played great. And, like I said in a tweet, the only things that can stop Gardner Minshew, the entire list is Porter Gustin dirty hits, inches of snow and ice, and Doug Marone's play calling. So.
and we should note that national televised game on Thursday, Gardner Minshew will be starting against the Titans.
That's going to
be that's pretty freaking cool. And then because he plays on Thursday, he's going to be in Pullman on Saturday. So
it's going to be awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Very exciting.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I have been sitting in this random spot in the Cosmo Hotel next to a picture of a showgirl for long enough.
Well, it's after midnight in Vegas. You're just getting started, Craig.
Dude. I'm in the same time zone as you.
No, for real?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Shows you how often I've been to Vegas. I have not been.
The 12 people that made it this far.
I've literally not been to Vegas in a decade. So I didn't remember.
Same time zone.
Oh,
same time.
Well, it's almost midnight, Craig. You're just getting started.
That might be true.
That's really what I meant.
If some of my coworkers are still out, it might be true.
All right, dude.
All right, man.
Good show.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.